Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So I finally reached the point where this is my last pre-recording I have to do for the Alien series, which is great because I've kind of had them stuck in my brain for a while. But it was fun though. I didn't mind. Where I had watched them like almost back to back with my mom over like a week or two, and then I have been rewatching them mostly getting through most of the movie. Actually, it's taken me a bit for all of them, from Alien to this one, except for the third movie. I didn't want to watch it, so this is the last pre-recording I'm doing, and then Alien Earth is going to be out by the time these get posted, and that'll be nice because then I can like watch those as they're coming out because it's a TV series, and then I can like, put the review where it needs to go and stuff after this one. And then I also got to watch Predator. So there'll definitely be more, just not yet. It'll just be nice for me because I'm trying to get these done under a certain time limit, and then I can just go back to playing Deltarune. But it's been cool. It's been more interesting where I've been like paying more attention to stuff and realizing and noticing things that I didn't the first like 2 times I watched most of these movies, except this one. This was my second time watching Resurrection specifically, because I feel like once I watched Prometheus and Covenant, and then I watched all the other ones, that things just were like clicking for me more, which was kind of funny because like watching those movies themselves as their own thing felt like very confusing to me. Alright, I have a bunch of notes for this, but I mean, usually I'm reading these and then I kind of just skip around in my notes. I just write like a ridiculous amount of stuff as I'm watching and just kind of sort with them on the go. So the plot of this one is it takes place like 200 years after Alien 3, and Ripley's been dead for all that time, and Weyland-Yutani I guess isn't like a thing anymore, and instead the like company of this movie and the villain is the US government, and they have this like space station where they're doing these like illegal experiments and whatever, and they end up getting Ripley's DNA from the prison planet, and they make a clone of her, and the clone is marked as number 8. Like she has a 8 tattooed on her arm, and because of that, I am going to be referring to this version of Ripley, like the clone, just specifically as the number 8, just because she doesn't really feel like the original Ripley to me, and the fact that I know that it's not, like she has a different personality and everything, that I just can't like call her Ripley. It like feels weird to me, even though everyone else in the movie refers to her as Ripley. I just wanted to bring that up. If you hear me just constantly saying the number 8, that's why. And there are other clones too, like there's more than 8. I mean, you'd expect that if our protagonist is like the 8th one, there's got to be, a 1 through 7 in there somewhere. And she's on this ship, and she is a hybrid between like human and with like Ripley's human DNA and the xenomorph DNA, and because it's the DNA from Ripley when she had already been like pregnant with the queen xenomorph, she still has it. Like even the clone has it inside her, and they cut open the clone, they remove the xenomorph. She's never in danger of being like chest bursted or anything, but because of that, it means that there is a queen xenomorph that is like giving birth and stuff on the ship, and that 8 is like the only successful combination of anyone getting like xenomorph DNA and stuff. I mean, usually it's either like injected into people or other stuff happening, but this time it's like a whole new person made by like genetically combining the DNA itself. So maybe that had something to do with it. There are like a billion like failed clones though. Anyway, because of that, she's like the best of both worlds, where she still looks like a human person and has like limbs and everything, and she's like humanly proportioned. She looks like a human, but she has like some of the xenomorph abilities, just none of their freaky like physical attributes or anything, except for the acid blood. The acid blood's pretty cool, and some of the other stuff. and she's able to use those abilities and help a group of mercenaries that end up stuck on the science station after the crew leaves and they're all stuck with the aliens. And it's kind of like the plot of the third movie, where it's like Ripley and then a bunch of other people she doesn't know, and she has to like help them with her alien expertise to survive. And that's pretty much the movie. I remember I sort of liked it enough when I originally watched that I was like, okay, I want it. Not like, oh, I need to give this movie another chance, but more of like, okay, after rewatching the other ones and having all the lore kind of mashed around in my brain, let me watch this one again and just kind of process it. Because it felt weird, like, I mean, Sigourney Weaver is playing like the 8th clone and stuff, so you think like, yeah, that's Ripley, but she's different enough from Ripley where it's like a different character, but they look the same, so it just kind of kept throwing me off as I was watching. But I do like that it kind of reminds me of more of like, I guess it kind of mostly reminds me of Aliens. Like, it has more horror than action compared to that movie, which is, I mean, there is action. They do have the mercenary people, they have so many weapons and guns, but it doesn't feel like an 80s action fest like Aliens. And I actually like that this one has more horror. That was pretty cool. And there is definitely some like scary stuff in there. There's always some kind of weird body horror in any of these. Like even Prometheus had its own body horror stuff. But I'll start at the beginning of my notes and we'll work our way from there. The title intro sequence is kind of creepy. I like how most of the time it's just like outer space and it feels like it's, it's empty and mysterious and whatever. And then in this one, it's like, I think it's supposed to be the clone forming, but it's like these weird close-ups of this like fleshy yellowy goo stuff that like oozes around, and it's kind of just really gross. And then sometimes we even see like an eyeball or some hair, not in the way of like a fetus developing, I guess, because there's like the alien DNA in there, but it feels icky. But I mean, it is supposed to be like the point, if Alien 3 hadn't been made in 1992, I would have said, oh, does the title refer? I mean, they are literally resurrecting Ripley, but I'm like, is it also supposed to be resurrecting the franchise? Which is kind of funny because then we have to wait all the way until like 2012 for another Alien movie, and it's not even referred to as Alien. The logo, okay, it didn't actually look like this in the movie, so I don't know if that's the correct one. It looked a bit different, where it looked so like 90s, early 2000s as soon as you see it, that it was kind of funny. What else? I wasn't sure, actually, when I guess I just was not paying attention or forgot or something. You know how they always tell you what the name of the ship is and how many people are on there? It's like, it literally says it's a ship from the US military, and for some reason, for part of the movie, I still thought it was like some branch of like Weyland-Yutani. I mean, to be fair, they do talk about that company a little bit, and they're like, oh yeah, that's like Ripley's old employers and stuff, and I don't remember the other thing with it. It sounded like it didn't exist anymore. I was wondering about that, like what finally brought the company down. Was it Ripley sacrificing herself in the third movie? And then they have 7 science officers, which science officers I always think about like the androids and stuff too, but there is an android in this movie, but it's not anyone that's part of the US military, thankfully. And then 8's first line is a quote. She has like a couple of quotes that are just directly from Newt, which is interesting. Like, her first line is one that Newt said about how her mom said that there wasn't any monsters and there actually are. I think that was probably a good quote to start with. It's like, she has Ripley's memories, so of course she remembers stuff from Newt, but like, they're not exact. They also describe her as having like emotional autism. I wasn't sure what they meant by that exactly. But yeah, she has like some of Ripley's memories, but she doesn't view herself as Ripley. Like, she literally asks one of the characters early on, like, oh, who am I? But she has a different personality. I think mostly because of, like, not just that she doesn't have memories of her own. Like, the movie starts and she's made, and then she just wakes up in what's basically like a giant plastic bag on the floor, and is just suddenly, like, conscious and stuff. But I think her personality is also influenced by, like, the alien DNA. I'll talk about that later. I was kind of expecting the scene where they do the surgery and remove the xenomorph out of her to, like, gross me out. But I guess because it just looked like normal surgery, and compared to, like, you know, anytime anyone has, like, a chest burster scene or the pregnancy scene from Prometheus or some of the other stuff that gets, like, really gory and icky, that I'm like, oh, regular surgery is fine. Like, normally surgery in movies can, like, gross me out, or especially if it's anything where it's someone doing surgery on themselves, like I think the movie The Martian has that, where they have to, like, patch themselves up, and I'm like, ugh. But then here it was fine. I mean, it didn't really look gross in general, but I think the body horror and gore of the rest of the Alien series and the weird things that happen to people, like, has kind of just desensitized me to any, like, normal surgery stuff in this series. Oh, sorry, I saw a Steam thing pop up, but it's not for me. Hold on, I'm looking at my notes. I was writing about how, like, wait, hold on. I want to read this before I read it. I say it out loud really quick. Oh, okay. I know what I was trying to say. I sometimes with the like autocorrect thing when you're typing on your phone, it like puts words that I'm not trying to write in there, and then it throws me off when I'm trying to read it later. Okay, I'll start reading. Crazy that with so many clones made and the efforts, it wrote the word effects instead of efforts, and that changed the meaning of my sentence. And the efforts that the original Ripley went through, and then they just make, like, a perfect hybrid clone and remove the xenomorph out of her, and that's it. Like, she never gets chest bursted or anything, and they don't even really seem to know what to do with her. I was surprised they kept her alive, especially because there's this general guy that freaks out, like, what do you mean it has memories or whatever? Why does it have memories? Like, they really did just bring her back and spend all this time making all these clones just to get the xenomorph. It's just weird seeing someone who's, like, a perfect clone when, like, Romulus has, like, the weird humanoid alien, and then this movie has its own weird humanoid alien at the end too. Like, we've seen so many failed times of, like, including the stuff in this movie, of, like, why trying to combine human and xenomorph DNA is, like, a very, very bad thing. Yeah. I like that when part of her introduction with 8 is one of the scientists is talking to her and gets, like, really close in her face. I don't remember what he says, and her immediate reaction is to lift her legs and then choke him with, like, her ankles before she gets, like, electroshocked or whatever, and she, like, smiles about it. And then they mention the reason she has memories is because of the alien DNA. I'm surprised they didn't say it was, like, anything that was, like, passed down from the original Ripley. What else? This movie's actually surprisingly funny. Every once in a while I'll mention, like, specific quotes or whatever that at least got somewhat of a laugh out of me. Like, there's a part where she's eating and a guy is trying to teach her the word fork and she says fuck. That was a little funny. I'm surprised they even gave her a fork to eat with. Like, I'm glad they're not at the point where they're, like, completely treating her like a child and cutting her food or anything, but, like, she could easily stab them, and they do know how dangerous she is and stuff, even without a weapon. She basically is like a human weapon at this point. And then the military, when they're talking, says, like, they sound so smug, like, we're the military, we're not a greedy company, everything's gonna be fine, but, like, 8 knows that they're going to die. And it's a good thing that this movie has like the mercenary crew, because I didn't care about the scientists, and then I forgot that the scientists all end up either leaving or dying anyway. Like the movie starts with like there's all these scientists around and whatever, and then the mercenaries show on board, and it's like, what's gonna happen? And then within like the first 20 minutes, the scientists, I think they try to leave, but a xenomorph gets in there and it kills the general, and he even looks and sees like a bit of his brain, which was kind of freaky, and then they're all just gone. But apparently they were planning to all leave anyway, or no, the ship was supposed to be headed towards Earth. I forgot, it was already moving before the xenomorphs show up, so the ship was originally going to Earth, and then once the characters figure that out, they have to like stop it from going to Earth, and bring the xenomorph there. But yeah, the scientists that are like all in the beginning, thankfully we don't really get to know like any of them actually for the most part, except there's like one that's still kind of like stuck around for most of the movie, because they all disappear. It doesn't matter. I think that's cool, because then with the mercenary people, or I'm assuming they were like space mercenaries, I didn't really know what to call them, that was just the word that popped in my head, so that's how I'm gonna refer to them. There's like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 of them originally, and then there's 8, and that's it. So I like that it's going back to like a small group of people, because the third movie had like a ton of prisoners and we don't get to know any of them. Like there's a couple we sort of get to know, but it's never like a group of them with Ripley in that movie. It's usually just like a couple, or they're scattered around doing things or whatever. They're kind of just there. We don't get to know them as characters. And then here, for better or for worse, we do get to know these mercenary characters, and they are like our spaceship crew of this movie. So I thought that was a good decision to have. I feel like the less characters you have, especially, it makes it kind of more scary as they're like slowly picked off by the xenomorphs, the more like, you know, time for character development you have and stuff. And then what else? It's interesting, this is the one movie, you know how there's always that like mother AI, the like voice that tells them stuff? She's there, I think, for like every single movie, even the ones that are like super duper prequels, like Covenant. And then this one has an AI, for some reason has an AI that's the same role, but it's called Father, but it functions like exactly this. Like I know Weyland Yutani isn't in this movie because it's the US government, but I'm curious why the change. I don't know, I just thought that was interesting. And it is kind of funny, like the soldiers at the beginning, they tell 8 like, oh, you know, things have changed a lot in your time. We're not like that greedy company, Weyland Yutani. And 8's just like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's all going to turn out the same anyway. And then it pretty much does. I mean, a lot of things, even though it's set like 200 years in the future from the third movie, it like still kind of feels the same. It doesn't feel so far in the future. I mean, it helps that the Alien movies were already like in the future compared to us, even from the first movie, so it's like going a bit more into the future doesn't throw you off. I mean, there's like a couple things, like in this one there's a part where instead of pouring someone a glass of drink, I mean, it could just be like an astronaut like space thing too, they have like a little blob that moves around and they throw it in the glass and then it becomes alcohol or something. Or maybe some of the tech, I don't know, the tech doesn't look super futuristic. I mean, then again, the thing with the tech in this series too, to me, is like it also entirely depends like when the actual movie is made, and not really like when it takes place in the timeline, except for Romulus. That one like completely nailed the like, we're gonna match the 70s alien like tech look. That was great. But I still think about like Prometheus and Covenant, where it looked like super futuristic and stuff with like the screens and whatever, but it's supposed to be like the 2 oldest movies in the franchise. Yeah, okay, so talking about the mercenary group, let's see, there's a captain, he's kind of rude. There's this guy with a really big forehead. I literally, because I didn't really remember anyone's names except for one character, because her name is like, it's just Call, it's like really short, and she's one of the main characters as well. the big forehead guy, I literally just referred to him as asshole in my notes. I'm not even kidding. That's how I'm gonna refer to him though. It's just the asshole mercenary that's on the team. Let's see. But yeah, he's really mean. The captain's like kind of rude, but he's not completely a dick. He does get like very like, it's either him or the asshole guy that gets like very flirty towards the female characters, where it is kind of like harassment though, and I didn't like that. What else? There's this guy who has 2 guns that he's carrying all the time that I thought were implied to be like attached to his hands. I didn't know if he was kind of making a joke out of it though, of like, oh, I never travel anywhere with these, or like, oh, these are like actually fused to my hands, kind of like that one movie with the guy that plays Harry Potter where he literally does have guns like surgically attached to his hands. And then there's this but yeah, that guy was cool, and he's usually with this guy who's in a wheelchair, and at one point in the movie they have to he has to like carry him on his back, kind of like Banjo-Kazooie style a little bit, if that makes sense. But the wheelchair guy, I feel bad referring to him as the wheelchair guy because he is a cool character, but I don't, you know what, I'm gonna go on Google. I need to figure out what these characters' names are, and I'm gonna have that pulled up because I feel bad that I don't remember anyone's name. Wait, hold on. Alien, I literally just looked up this movie too. No, not Alien Romulus, not Alien Earth, Alien Resurrection. I always forget the title of this one. I feel like, because it feels more like mouthy than the other ones. Okay, let me go on Wikipedia. Group of mercenaries. Oh yeah, that's why I didn't remember any of their names. I don't even know how to pronounce some of these. Okay, I think the guy in the wheelchair's name is Veris or something. I'm probably not saying that right. I'm just gonna mention the names here and I can get that out of the way. Man, they're not even really referred to by name that much in here, because there's one that drowns, but I don't think her name was Christy. I think Christy was actually a dude's name, if I remember correctly. Johnner, Hillard, Elglian, and Call. Yeah, I can't even tell from looking at the names to remember which character is which from here, so I kind of do have to refer to them as the way I described them in here in my notes. Sometimes I just don't catch names, or sometimes it's like I'm just not paying attention enough. Okay. I'm gonna keep going then. Let's see. Oh yeah, the reason the mercenaries are there in the first place is which I didn't really understand the first time I was watching until they talk about it more in the plot. They have to bring this cargo, and I thought the cargo was like actual objects or like science equipment or whatever, but no, it's people. They bring people, and then the people are used as test subjects, or not really test subjects. It's more just like they're trying to create more xenomorphs. They're not really like testing anything, where the people are locked in these like tubes with the like xenomorph eggs. And we even see the perspective of this one guy who like wakes up in the tube and then sees the egg opening, and like he doesn't know what's happening, but he knows he's fucked. But yeah, I don't remember if the mercenaries like knew, all of them knew what the cargo they were carrying, because otherwise it's like, damn, you guys are like actually morally that messed up. And one of those guys who has the egg in him or whatever and gets like impregnated and stuff, or like implanted, I don't know which is the better word. He ends up accompanying the group, and the entire time you're kind of just waiting for him to like chest burst, and then it finally happens at the end. But like they're ready, you know, like they have their guns pointed at him, and the xenomorph does start chest bursting, and then 3 people are just immediately shooting him, and it's like the one time where I'm like, yes, someone's finally prepared for when another person gets like chest bursted. I swear most of the time it happens, and I mean usually it's characters witnessing it that like don't know what the hell's going on, they see it and they just kind of stand there and just kind of watch it happen, and then the chest burster either like attacks someone, or the face hugger. Why do I keep saying chest burster? No, the face hugger, because that's the one that looks like a little spider and it hugs your face. Like crawls out and stuff, and then it like leaves or it attacks someone. No one ever thinks to just like shoot it as it's coming out, and that always bothers me. Okay, what else? There's something I referred to as the basketball scene where Eight's playing basketball, and I thought that was cool because we get to see her enhanced abilities. She interacts with the mercenaries for the first time, and she kind of puts the Aspel guy in his place, and she has this smugness to her where she's like messing with people on purpose that Ripley didn't have. But it makes sense when I mentioned the alien DNA thing, because the scientist characters literally say like, oh, she's like a predator, huh? Which, of course, that made me think of the movie Predator, where she just naturally messes with people. I mean, the xenomorphs kind of do a similar thing where they sort of toy with their food a little bit and not like immediately eating them, where they're like trying to scare them and stuff. So then seeing that attribute, but like on a human person, I think that's part of the reason she like kind of throws me off as a character. It doesn't feel like Ripley. Like Ripley did like yell at people and stuff when necessary and whatever, but she wasn't really like a dick to people though. And then there's this trick that 8 does where she throws a basketball into a hoop, but it's like behind her. I don't remember what that's called, but that was really cool. I'm wondering if that was done on like one take or something. And there's like a bunch of other basketball stuff she does where she like spins it on one finger and whatever. That was cool. And then we find out she has the same acid blood ability as xenomorphs, but hers works in like a really interesting way where I'm glad that it's used as like a plot element and stuff, and kind of used to get out of sticky situations. Like they take advantage of it in the movie, where she has the acid blood thing, but it's red, and it has this like delayed melting thing where you know how it's like the yellow regular xenomorph blood, like if it hits you or if it hits anything, it just melts like instantly and stuff. But then with 8's, it's like it takes like a couple seconds. Like they even do this reveal where her blood lands on the floor, and then we see the scene ends, and then we see her blood like bubbling, and it doesn't work the same as like how the xenomorph blood, you know how it usually cuts a hole, like a giant hole through like 50 floors of a spaceship or whatever. I mean, we only ever see her bleed like that in like, it's like a nosebleed, or she gets like a cut on her hand or whatever. We never see her full on like bleed like someone shoots her. So I don't know if her blood is capable of cutting through multiple layers, or it's only because we see it a little bit, but it always cuts like if she like flicks it or puts her hand on something or whatever, it just makes like a small hole. And that ends up being convenient when she has to like melt wires, or conveniently at like the end of the movie she has to make a hole, or she has to melt some glass or something in the spaceship they're in, and it makes for some reason like a perfect tiny hole that almost looks kind of like you'd see like a faraway bullet hole. I mean, I don't know if bullet holes are like perfectly round, but you know, and so it's almost like a tiny bomb you can touch, because she can even like, not just when it's bleeding, but she can like have it on her hand and kind of just touch it on something, not kind of like the way you just smear, I guess it is just like how we smear blood, huh? But it doesn't hurt her, even though it melts, even when it's on like the outside of her bloodstream, if it's on her hand. I hope that makes sense. Wait, I'm gonna save that. There's a paragraph I wrote about one of the characters, and I'm like, I'm gonna wait till I get to the part of the plot where the stuff about her is revealed, and then I can talk about it more. I'll have to remember to come back. There's a part where Call, she meets Ripley I'm gonna talk about Call a lot because she's like the secondary protagonist, by the way. Because her thing is like, she goes on the ship specifically to attack 8. I think to just prevent the xenomorph from coming out of her and stuff, because she knew about a lot of stuff ahead of time. It's like revealed later. So she goes to try to kill her, and I forgot that, like, you know, the xenomorphs usually have like instincts where they're kind of just aware of things and whatever, and like eight's just kind of there and suddenly like kind of jolts up or something. Like she knew that someone was trying to kill her, and there's a part where she's like, do you really think you can kill me or whatever? And she sticks calls the knife like directly through her own hand, not Call's hand, but eight's. Would have been a different thing if it was stuck through Call's hand, actually. Different reveal. But it gets stuck through, and it looks weird because the knife is like directly through her hand, but it's not really like bleeding or anything. I think because the acid blood, the knife, I don't know if it was like melting through her hand or whatever. It was kind of weird to watch. And then she pulls it out, which was hard to watch, and then it's sort of bleeding a little bit. I don't think it affected the knife though, but it just felt a little icky to watch. Of like, ugh. And then there's the line I mentioned about 8 asking, who am I? And Call says, you're a thing, a construct, they grew you in a fucking lab, which actually no, I'll get into that. Call's reveal, because I wrote so many foreshadowing things about stuff like that. No, Call's revealed to be an android, not specifically a Weyland-Yutani synthetic though, or I don't. No, because she's like referred to as a robot built by robots or something. But that's like a really cool reveal at like the end of the like an hour into the movie. So it's like actually pretty late into it because it's only like an hour and a half. It's like a really cool scene. That's why I was waiting to talk about it. But I'm like, I have notes about it throughout my entire thing. So then it's knowing that like as you're watching is interesting, because then she'll have lines like that about like, oh, you're just this thing that they made, when she like talks to 8 about her being like a clone or whatever, or being like, oh, she's not human, we can't trust her, she was made by these people, she's like probably going to betray us or something. But it's because I think Call's like a pretty interesting character, because she's, wait, let me scroll back to the paragraph. I think she's probably one of my favorite synthetics because she's so human that I feel the robot reveal late into the movie is like actually surprising. I feel like with some of the other I mean, yeah, now that I think about it, Andy and Bishop were revealed like pretty much the beginning of the movie, but that was like, I mean, for Andy it was out of necessity. For Bishop, I don't know, I think it was just more like it was revealed to Ripley and not like to anyone else. But with Andy, it's like the plot would not have worked if they didn't know that he was a synthetic immediately. But like with some of the other characters, they always have kind of like certain behavior where you're like, okay, this person's probably a synthetic. But I was like really trying to pay attention this like second viewing, and I didn't know Call, I keep wanting to read it as Cal, but it's pronounced Call, like phone call, is like so human and everything that like I couldn't find any signs that like gave the reveal away until she gets like shot in the chest and then has a really long fall and then dramatically emerges from a door, and everyone's like, how are you still alive? And then they see her like she has a bullet hole injury and stuff, and then the white blood always like clues you in of like, oh, that person's a synthetic. I do want to talk about that scene because I thought it was kind of interesting, but that's like way later in the notes. But I feel like she's, other than maybe like Andy, possibly David, I don't, not in Prometheus, but probably in Covenant. I'm like trying to think back. She's probably the closest to having like her own personality and preferences and stuff. And I mean like to the point where you can't tell. She's like her own person. She like jokes around with the crew and stuff. She's pretty funny. But she does try to protect them and stuff, which is like part of her programming. It's kind of funny because she's like the way 8 figures out like, oh, I should have expected that you were synthetic. She says, I'm gonna scroll back to that line actually, something like, no human being is that humane, which is kind of sad, but it's right, of like, oh, you're more human than the actual humans, which is true. She's like the only part of that mercenary group that's like morally good. They're kind of all assholes in a sense, and she's the one that's like trying to even warn them about the xenomorphs, and is trying so hard to like make sure that everyone makes it out okay and stuff. And they don't really listen to her, and they kind of treat her badly, like even before they find out she's a synthetic. And then with the human like scientists and or not the scientists in like the US military, they're willing to put people on Earth in danger to get like a xenomorph for their weapons division or whatever, so they're no better. It reminds me, like, since I just watched Aliens, where Ripley's talking to Burke and says something like, oh, I don't know which species worse, maybe the ones that aren't trying to like screw each other over for a percentage, you know. Like, I like how these movies, especially with, you know, Weyland-Yutani, the company, being like the besides like the other villain besides the xenomorphs in this series, like the villain is capitalism and stuff. But shoot, what was I going to say? I was having a really good point here. Humans are the real monsters. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah, I mean, not all of them. We definitely meet some good humans throughout this series. And I mean, we don't meet completely good synthetics either. Some of them are like trying to get people killed and stuff. But, you know, just that theme that there is of like, sometimes humans are worse than the xenomorphs, so having that line of like, I guess that is the thing that maybe would give Call away for being a synthetic, of like, she's nicer than everyone else, but I mean, there sometimes are just nice people, so I'm okay. Sorry about that. I need some water real quick. I feel like sometimes I only cough like that when it's like you're choking on a piece of food or something goes down the wrong pipe. But I'm literally just sitting here. I didn't get too excited either, because sometimes when I get too excited, I cough like crazy. One sec. Okay, I'm good. I know I can edit that out. I get lazy. I'm in the middle of talking. I don't want to lose my train of thought. My notes went backwards. It's hard because my phone sometimes thinks when I'm clicking around when I'm scrolling, that I'm like trying to type or whatever. Oh yeah, and then actually calls them out. That's not a pun. I'm not trying to make a name pun. Calls out the mercenaries when they're like being dicks to each other and stuff. Like, the scene where she's like introduced is she's helping one of the crew members, and another crew member throws a knife that stabs him in the leg, but he doesn't feel it because he's like paralyzed from the waist down, and he doesn't even notice that he doesn't even see that the knife's there or anything. But then Call notices, and it is from the asshole guy that's like throwing the knives, and she gets mad at him. And I think she does something with the knife that gets him mad. Like, that dude didn't like her from the start, and he gets even more aggressive when he finds out that she's a synthetic. But yeah, they talk to her like a child a lot of the time, because she's like the newest person on the team. The only thing I think I didn't like about her character was, like, with the other synthetics we've seen, you know, they usually have like super strength basically and stuff, and they usually have, besides that, like some other advantages to humans, even though they all usually get like decapitated or cut in half or whatever. Not like they're invincible for like being made out of metal, but they're usually really strong, or like their connections to computers and stuff to do stuff or whatever, you know, and it usually makes them a threat. But Call is like so human that I'm wondering if she also doesn't like being an android. I'll explain that too later on, but there's a lot of times where she's kind of like the damsel in distress and 8 has to save her, where she either like freezes in, not the way that Andy freezes where he's like literally frozen on the floor, but like she kind of like just kind of stands there wide-eyed, or someone holds her at like gunpoint or something or whatever. Or like the guy that holds her at gunpoint, for example, I'm like, girly, at this point in the plot you've already been revealed to be a synthetic. You could easily like throw this guy across the room or something. And she only ever uses like weapons too, like she never actually like physically tries to fight anyone or anything, whether it's like a human person or a xenomorph or something. Like her getting shot directly in the chest, that was like being caught on surprise. I get that, but some of the other stuff, I mean, she does use the computer ability stuff, to be fair. Like once she's revealed, she's like actually does control stuff with the ship they're on and whatever, even though she like very clearly like doesn't want to. I don't remember why, but that was just something that was a bummer. Like I know for most of the movie she doesn't purposely want them to know that she's a synthetic, so I'm like, okay, it makes sense, you're like trying to blend in as much as possible, which isn't hard because she acts pretty much the same, like even when it is revealed, but like even afterwards, like the last 30 minutes of the movie, like she's even the one that has the final like confrontation with the xenomorph at the end and stuff, and then 8 has to show up and save her. I don't know, I guess maybe it's because like 8 has these like, I guess these abilities that kind of would replace a synthetic, of like having the super strength and having cool things like the acid armor and whatever. I don't know, but usually the synthetics feel like kind of cooler in a sense, in that they're able to do stuff too. But the fact that Call keeps ending up in danger, where I kept forgetting she was a synthetic towards the end and was just basically like a normal person, but like, you know, knowing she's not a normal human, it's just like you could defend yourself a little bit. I mean, I think she was already able to fight, I don't know. But other than that, I like her character. I'll talk about her more as she, and her sort of developing friendship with Ripley is also nice. It isn't as strong as some of like the other bonds throughout the movie, like Newt and Ripley, or like Rain and Andy and Romulus or anything, but you know, it's there. They're but sometimes it is kind of weird. I don't know if it was like, they have this like weird, like, I don't know if I even want to call it like sexual tension or something at first, where it's like when Call goes to try and kill her and they're like talking and stuff, there's a part where like 8 is kind of like stroking, what was it that I wrote? She's like stroking Call's face and then kind of like nuzzles into it, and I was wondering if that was because of like, or just sometimes the way she like interacts with her and stuff. But I was also wondering if that was part of the like xenomorph DNA, maybe, because there's a xenomorph at the end. It's not, it's like the humanoid one that I mentioned, and I'll be talking about that later as well. And it sorry, this is already like 40 minutes, by the way. I'm not even close with my notes. I've been just going all over the place with this, and it like nuzzles onto to Call. But I mean, that one has human DNA too, so I don't know, maybe, I mean, the xenomorphs never really know how to treat synthetics anyway. I wasn't sure if they, I mean, when I was originally writing my notes, before I got to the end of the movie, I thought it doesn't feel like they're friends at the end, like Call's just kind of like following 8 around. But then 8 does show, especially when Call is revealed to be a synthetic after a bit, like that she does care about her, so it's kind of nice. And then there's a shooting scene between, kind of like a standoff between the mercenaries and some of the military in the basketball room. That's pretty cool, especially this one guy that has like laser guns that actually bounce off of walls and stuff. When he shoots, he does like a trick shot that like kills a guy that's holding him at gunpoint, and I kind of wish that he did that more often. there's a part where the xenomorphs get to talk to each other, not like talk in English, but they're making their like sounds or whatever. They're like where it looks like they're arguing, and then they sacrifice one of them. There's like 3 of them in a room. They're in like a prison, and the body melts the floor, and then they're able to escape. I've never seen them turn on each other like that before. Like originally I just, watching the other ones, I just assumed that like sometimes they even kind of seem to work together, or they've because they like, I was gonna say they're so maternal, but like they give birth through like eggs and then abandon their young, so I don't know. And they're like smart too. I mention that every once in a while, but it still kind of surprises me. It almost reminds me of like the dinosaurs from Jurassic Park a little bit in that sense. Like, there's a part when they escape the prison, there's a guy checking the prison cell, and the xenomorphs used to be kind of quote unquote trained where someone would press a button and it like makes the room really cold, or like lets out like cold air, and they literally freeze a guy by knowing how to press buttons or something. It's kind of interesting. What else? The father AI kind of, it doesn't have that many lines, but sounded similar enough to the announcer from Portal 2, even though there's like a 10-year gap between that game and when this movie's made, that I had to Google it. It's not the same person, but sounds like really, really close, where it was kind of throwing me off. The lighting, I always feel like I'm talking about the lighting in these, but I feel like that makes or breaks at least some of the tension in these movies. There is so much light in this movie for them being in like a spaceship. I mean, to be fair, it's like a US military ship that seems like pretty tough and not like a piece of junk that the characters are usually in, though at the end of the movie they do end up in like a really old spaceship to like try to escape. And 8 makes a joke of like, when someone asks if she knows how to fly it, and she's like, are you kidding, this shit's older than I am, which I felt was kind of like a Ripley line there of like, maybe it is even older than Ripley. But yeah, there's so much light in this movie, it actually feels pretty bright. Like, I'm glad I can see, compared to how some movies are nowadays. Like, when I went to go see the Batman movie in theaters, for example, the one with Robert Pattinson, and it was so dark on the screen that I couldn't see what was going on. And this movie was the opposite, where it was like, it was not like it was like hospital level bright or anything, but it was just really bright, but it didn't fit the vibe, and I was kind of bummed with that. There's some like decent jump scare stuff too. Wait, hold on. Like, there's, especially when the mercenaries get attacked throughout the movie, I think that's like the main thing. Like, there's one of the first people to die is I think the first person that actually dies in their crew is their captain, and he's walking around and he sees something on the floor, and there's like grates on the floor too. It's not like the xenomorphs are only coming from above, and he's looking at something, and then we see the xenomorph fingers coming through the grate, and then it pulls him down and kills him like immediately, and then the mercenary crew shows up and they're trying to find him, and then they find his corpse, and that was pretty crazy. And then after he dies, 8 kind of becomes their group leader. Like, she literally shows up by popping out of the floor and shooting a xenomorph with a shotgun or something, and then calls like, isn't that weird for you? You're like killing your own kind or whatever. And she just says like, oh, she's in the way, it was in the way or whatever. And she's kind of a psycho as well. I'm wondering how much of that is, that probably is the alien DNA actually. Or maybe like, would this be what Ripley was like if she was just completely unhinged? Like, she literally rips out the xenomorph's like little tongue thing. My mom calls it the little face because it looks like a little face, when they like impale people with their mouths or whatever. And she doesn't care about like killing xenomorphs in her way or anything. It's weird because like normally in these, it's like usually it's like the synthetic character that we sometimes can't trust or aren't sure about. But this time, like, the synthetic is the most human character, and the protagonist the humanish protagonist is like the one that we can't really trust, or I mean, more of like kind of like, is she gonna betray? I mean, I was thinking that the first time I watched, I thought, is she gonna betray them and like help the xenomorphs, because she sounds more interested in that in the beginning of the movie, and like every once in a while she'll mention about like being able to sense where things are, like she literally senses like that the queen is in pain at one point and then goes to try to find her. I was wondering what the state of Earth is supposed to be too, because there's a guy that calls Earth like a shithole, and it didn't sound like it was like a joke or anything. It sounded, I thought, like, is Earth like post-apocalyptic at this point? Is that why everyone's, because like throughout the series it's like we see all these colonies that they're trying to like make on other planets and stuff, but then we do get to see Earth at the end, not like touch down on the ground, but we get to see like clouds and stuff. Like the sky looks fine, and like from far away Earth looks good, but I don't know. There's some jokes sometimes where people ask Ripley's about, or they ask Aid about like the xenomorphs and stuff, or her surviving things, and she just keeps saying like, oh yeah, I died, or I get that along a lot, or whatever. And I have to remember like, oh yeah, she really did die, or at least that's gotta be weird to be like a clone of someone that's already dead, but having those like the memories of that person, like she remembers dying even though it like physically wasn't her. That's gotta be really weird, right? Okay, I think one of the best scenes in the movie though, and one that had like a different kind of body horror, was when 8, she finds this room with the, you know, clones 1 through 7. We get to see what they look like, and she actually cries. It's like the first time in the movie where she sounds like she cares about something, and it's just kind of sad because they're like all these just abominations, so many failed clones, which I feel like that makes sense because I thought there's no way you get a perfect clone right on the bat. I mean, she is also named 8 as well, like it's literally tattooed on her and everything, so that kind of means the fact that we don't see the other clones early on is probably not a good sign. And their designs honestly look kind of scarier than the xenomorphs. I mean, maybe also because I'm used to what the xenomorphs look like and they're not scary, but like her clones are. But where they're like versions of her face that are morphed with like the xenomorph features or whatever. The one design of it I did actually thought looked cool and didn't look scary though, was there's one that has like her human body and everything and her limbs and stuff, but it has like the xenomorph head, but it has completely human skin instead of the xenomorph skin. That one looked cool. It even had the teeth and stuff and no eyes, and I was like, that's something I'd be okay with running around. Actually, no, if something like that ran around on all fours, but like humanoid, that would be kind of scary if I'm honest. And then we get to meet clone number 7, which is crazy because it's like our protagonist clone number 8. It's not like there's a big gap between them, but like 8 is perfect, probably like doesn't have any like, besides being a hybrid with like cool abilities and stuff, which I don't think the other clones got any cool abilities. I mean, she doesn't have any, she looks completely human and stuff. She doesn't have any weird like xenomorph mutations. And then 7, meanwhile, actually 7 looks mostly human. It's just she has, I think her arm and her leg are like alien or something, but I did notice she had like a big scar on her chest, so I'm assuming they also cut a xenomorph out of her. Maybe that's where one of them came from. But that's when 8 gets most emotional, and it is kind of sad because it's one of those things where like 7 is on an operating table or like just laying on a table. She can't even like get up and move or do anything. She like begs the main character to kill her, and I was just thinking about that for a while, of like, imagine being 7, like you have Ripley's memories and stuff, so you have the memories of like the previous 3 movies to some degree, of like, you know, surviving everything and just going through all of that, and then you wake up on a table as that, where you can't move or do anything. And just to have that fate, that's got to be pretty nasty. like pretty bad, you know. That's what I mean by nasty, not like gross nasty. I realized when I said it, I'm like, wait a minute, it's not the context I want to use the word nasty in. And then I kind of expected 8 to shoot. There's like a scientist guy that's with them, like one of the doctors, I think, that was making all the clones and stuff. And I thought that 8 would try to shoot him or whatever, but she doesn't, which I thought was interesting. Like, normally she's fine with violence, and she was originally mad at the scientists about stuff and whatever. You think she'd be pissed about the clone stuff because she got very emotional. I think maybe she thinks, like, maybe death is too good for him or whatever. But I like that 8 chooses not to shoot him. She just throws the gun down, and then Call immediately punches him in the face. And then I think from there they do start kind of becoming friends, so I don't know. There's a part where they have to go underwater, which is really cool, where they're swimming and whatever, and the xenomorph apparently can swim too, and it's following them, and just that whole sequence is pretty good because, like, they try to scream but they can't scream, and they're having a hard time shooting their weapons. They actually have to, like, escape to get away from it and stuff. I feel bad. There's a woman that's on the mercenary team, and you can tell she can't swim because she's the last one to go into the water, and before she does, she looks really scared, where you kind of know, like, okay, she's probably going to die down there. And then I still remember the part when the xenomorph grabs her leg and it drags her, and right before it drags her away, she tries to scream, either like in fear or in help, and it gets her because she lags behind because she's not a good swimmer. And I don't think the team even, like, notices that she gets taken because they don't try to rescue her. I mean, immediately afterwards, we do get a shot of 8 just kind of staring and then turning away. So I was wondering if she saw and just decided not to help or something. It wasn't very clear. But that was one of the parts of the movie that actually felt, like, really tense, where you think, like, it's gonna get them, and then you think, okay, they're safe, the danger's gone, only to be trapped by this, like, membrane where they have to, like, cut it out. And then it's revealed that, because it was like a circular hole that the membrane was covering, and it's lined around with alien eggs, so it was a trap to get them over there and into the water and everything. And then the part where Call gets shot is also pretty good, where it's like a fake out death thing. I mean not that, like, you know, she's gonna come back to life, but she dies, and then she dies, where there's this guy that's like, okay, the door's jammed, give me your weapon, and she gives him the gun, and then he says something like, oh, you're too trusting or whatever, and then shoots her, and then she, like, dramatically falls into the water, and then they think she's dead from there. And then there's a scene where there's like a long scene where they have to climb up ladders, where there's a guy who gets acid on his face, and the xenomorph's trying to drag him down, and he's carrying this other guy. And then the one time I liked the asshole guy was he's on a different ladder, and he does this thing that was cool, and I'm like, how are you not falling off the ladder? Where he has, like, his feet attached to the ladder, and he leans all the way. I'm even, like, trying to do it as I'm describing it. He leans all the way back, so his head's upside down, and he has his guns, and then he aims to shoot the alien. And he's on a higher ladder than the other people, my bad, because he aims to shoot down the alien, but he keeps missing into those, like, laser gun things. That was pretty cool. But yeah, that whole scene was really tense. I think, like, a couple people die there or something, or no, I think it's just one guy that chooses to die there, so the others can escape. And then Call shows up, like, a minute later, so it's not like she was gone for very long, where she ends up getting the door open for them. But I'm still, it's my second time watching, and I still don't understand how she did it, because she fell in the water, which was at the bottom of, like, where the ladders were and stuff, because she originally got shot, like, right at the top, and then suddenly she's at the top and the door's open, which means she had to swim through the water and then end up all the way on the other side of the door to where the characters were going to be able to unlock it. The movie doesn't explain it, she just kind of does it and stuff. I don't know, how did she get the door up? Because she doesn't like connecting into the computer to open doors and does stuff, or does, like, any of that until the end anyway. But That's still cool. I mean, they don't do the robotic reveal then. They're just like, whoa, you're here, you're not dead. And then they're like, how are you not dead? We saw you, like, not we saw you die, but like we saw you literally get shot in the chest. And it's not like she has an obvious injury either. Then 8 goes to look, and I like the way it is actually revealed, where the camera goes down from like Call's face and then to the jacket, and then 8 pulls open the jacket a little bit and you see the bullet hole and like the blood comes out. But other than that, she's like fine and still functioning and whatever. It wasn't really in the like a shot in the chest, actually. It looked like it was a shot in like the kidney or whatever. And then it's just kind of sad because once it's revealed that she's a synthetic, Call looks like she's going to cry. And then the group ends up making fun of her immediately. And that's the part I didn't like, because they did spend the movie, not like they're all buddies or whatever, but like they treated her as part of the team. Like they would make sure she was keeping up with them and whatever, and they made this point early on about like not leaving anyone behind. And they react to her being as a robot, where like they start talking at her like she's an object and not a person, where they're like there's this one guy, the guy who's a chest burster in him, who's like, oh great, she's a toaster, can we like move on now? And there's this other guy who's like, whoa, you're like an actual robot, I didn't think there was that many left. And they're all kind of just like making fun of her, and she's like crying. It's like, poor thing. Like the asshole guy, it was kind of interesting though. He mentions, I mean, he is like a dick to her immediately. Of like, oh, I thought syntheticals were supposed to be all logical and shit. But like, I was thinking back to that, and I'm like, oh yeah, because that's how the Wayland Company like originally wanted them to be seen, huh? Like they were originally designed to be human-like, and it freaked people out, so they were all made to like be logical and stuff. But yeah, no, they're not all like that, I guess. And then I was kind of confused the first time I watched, because you know, you just think like, okay, she's another like Wayland Yutani synthetic, which I mean that would fit, because we've seen that they can last basically like forever and stuff. They don't like age or anything. But they refer to her even as like, oh, you're like a second generation one, huh, or something. And I thought, oh, okay, she must be like a really old like model or something, or like I was trying to think in my head, and I'm like, is she from like the same time as like Bishop maybe? But no, they refer to her as being like a robot built by robots or so. And then it's explained as this whole thing, and it's like, no wonder she's not loyal to any company. It's sounded basically like the synthetics were building themselves, and it was supposed to be like a revival for synthetics or whatever. But then they had some kind of robot uprising, but didn't like being told what to do. And then the government had them all recalled, except that a couple of them remained intact. And I thought like, man, it's about time the synthetics stand up for themselves. But apparently she's one of the ones that was intact, which explains part of the reason she didn't want the group to know that she was a synthetic. Wait, what was I going to say? Oh, and then it's revealed later that like the reason she's actually there is because she had hacked into the mainframe and found out all the government secrets and about the cloning stuff and whatever. And she was gonna, I think it was that she was gonna like use the information to bring them down, and she was helping the mercenaries because she was programmed to help them, but also, which I'm like, okay, that makes sense, because they were treating her terribly, and I'm like, why is she choosing to stick with them for so long? But it's because she's supposed to be trying to keep them safe, and trying to like not let the xenomorphs get to Earth. Like it's kind of funny because then 8 mentions later of like, oh yeah, you saved Earth, how does that feel? And I feel like that does make sense once I think about it, because there's a part when it's revealed that one of the mercenaries actually didn't die. Like we're supposed to think he died, and then he didn't, and he's fine. And Call's the only, she like full on like smiles, like beaming that this guy's okay. And I'm like, you know, besides actually caring that he's fine, I'm like, oh, it's probably because she's like supposed to make sure they're safe and stuff. But what I think is interesting is she has this conversation with 8 like right afterwards, where she's like trying to like connect herself to the computer even though she really doesn't want to. And it's kind of nice where like she's controlling things and trying to do stuff, and 8's trying to like walk her through it, but they're also just like kind of chatting. And she doesn't like being a synthetic, which I find kind of interesting. Like, she has this quote that I was still thinking about when they're talking, and she's like, oh, at least there's part of you that's human, because 8's a hybrid. And she's like, look at me, I'm disgusting. But I mean, it's gotta suck being a synthetic in the sense of like, you're not like treated as like you're real as everyone else. But it is interesting like to get the perspective of a synthetic who doesn't like being a synthetic and probably does wish to be like a human person, compared to some of the other synthetics where they believe they're like superior to humanity in some way, to like various degrees. Sorry, I know I keep pausing a lot. It's just, it's kind of hard for me to like get my, I have like so many things written down on this page. I'm like trying to get my thoughts in order, because I wanted to talk about that line. But yeah, that is another way that she bonds with 8 at that point. Like, it does feel from that point on that they're like actually caring about each other's safety and stuff, probably because, you know, it's got to be nice to talk to someone who's like also not human, though 8 isn't treated differently by the crew. That like, she even does get referred to as Ripley eventually. Like, they never think she's gonna betray, like they trust her immediately, and then it's just Cal being a synthetic is the thing that weirds them out, even though they've known her like a lot longer. I do like the part where the doctor guy, he's trying to ditch them, and he's like, what's up with the power surge, father? And he's yelling for father, the AI, and then Cal has this line that's like, father's dead asshole, and then sarcastically tells the aliens like where to find this guy and on what specific floor. And then Cal mentions how she's like programmed to help or whatever, and 8 says something like, you've got a bit of a mean streak, huh? You're just like programmed to be an asshole or whatever. Like, they're at that point where they can like joke with each other about stuff. And then there's a guy that makes fun of Cal for being a synthetic again, and 8 is full on ready to literally pull out the guy's tongue and actually gets mad about it. So I'm like, oh, okay, you guys are like finally friends now. And then there's a scene where 8 gets pulled into the like xenomorph nest, not what I usually refer to as a nest, where it's like weird stuff hanging on the wall, but it's like I don't even know what the hell to describe it as. There's like a shot that just feels kind of icky where it's like the xenomorph body stuff, and she's like literally sucked into the ground, but it kind of looks like she's just laying there on a waterbed type of thing with the way she's like floating on it. It's like ugh to me. And then she gets pulled down, and we see that the queen, because it has 8's DNA, because it's been trapped down there like the whole time, like it never tries to go to attack the group or anything, instead of giving birth the usual xenomorph way where it gives birth to like a bunch of eggs or whatever, which doesn't seem to like hurt it or anything, instead it gives birth like humans now. So it has this like giant lump. Like, it's kind of funny. It's kind of easy-ish to understand, like, as you're seeing it or whatever, but there is, like, one of the scientist guys who is trapped in there, and his entire purpose down there is to tell us what's happening, of, like, hey, the queen has your DNA now, and you gave her the gift to give birth like a person, and then we just see the queen attached to this giant lump, which is probably, like, its stomach or something. and it's like screaming in pain the same way like someone does during like childbirth. And I like how the baby, when it's still wrapped in the whatever it's wrapped in, it does look like a xenomorph at first, like the silhouette, and then as soon as it's born you see what it looks like. And normally if Romulus did not exist, I would say, oh, that thing is so cursed, but like seeing the other baby from Romulus, I'm like, okay, this isn't actually that bad in comparison, like scary wise. This one, I mean, it still looks weird, and if Romulus didn't exist and I had seen this and stuff compared to the other ones, it'd be like, whoa. It's not as bad because it doesn't look as human. Like, it doesn't have the xenomorph coloring. It has like the human skin, but it's still shaped like a xenomorph and everything, and it looks pretty similar except for the face. The face is basically like a human skull, and then it has like the xenomorph, like the thing on the back of the head. I don't know what to call that like hangs over, but it has like a human skull. I mean, then there's more stuff about it that's revealed where I'm just like, ugh. Like, it has humanish teeth. I actually thought there was a person in there, like between this and the baby from Romulus, as I refer to it as. I thought the baby thing from Romulus was like a CGI thing, and then I found out it was like a person in costume, which is pretty cool but also scary. And then with this one, I thought it was a person in costume because the xenomorph like blinks, and the baby thing like blinks here and stuff, and the way it moves around. Turns out it's actually an animatronic, which is really cool. I'm actually glad they didn't go with CGI. Oh yeah, CGI. This entire series I've been mentioning about a specific shot that looked like really bad CGI with a xenomorph on the ceiling. By process of elimination, I know it's from 3 because that scene was not in this movie. It was from a xenomorph on the prison ceiling where the CGI looked awful. I mean, I know it was from 1992, but that made me appreciative that this movie, I mean, I don't know if it used CGI for this stuff, but I didn't notice any that where I was like, oh, this is like a bad effect or whatever. And that was cool. Like, this creature, I think I was reading they originally wanted it to be CGI, but they thought it would look bad or something. It was from the Wikipedia page. Don't quote Wikipedia on this. And then they decided to do an animatronic. I feel like that works, but I feel like practical works usually do work better than CGI, and that's, to me, why sometimes older movies can age like fine, because the practical effects just still hold up, which is cool. I'm not saying like CGI always looks bad though. Like, it can look really cool, and stuff like Prometheus and Romulus, not Romulus, and what's the other one, Covenant or whatever, because those are the ones that feel like they have the most CGI. Those look great. This thing, I'm glad it's an animatronic, but I mentioned its eyes. There's a thing with its eyes where like there's like thunder that happens, and when the lighting changes and the light hits this thing and you just see the inside of its eyes, it has like humanish eyes inside of its eye sockets. And it's different from the Romulus baby, because the Romulus baby, it just has like eyes, like its eyes are there, but because the baby in this one has like full-on sockets, I'm not kidding when I say it looks like a human skull as its face with like skin stretched over it. It's like the eyes are deep in its sockets, and you can like see it blink, and it feels weird. And it has teeth, and like really tiny fangs, and instead of the little mouth thing, as my mom refers to it as, I don't know what it's called, but I call it the little mouth thing because of her, it has a tongue, and the tongue is really long, and there's this part when it like goes up to look at 8, because it eats the queen. By the way, it kills her. I'm wondering if it's because it views itself as more human than xenomorph, and then it goes to 8 and it thinks that she's its mom, and it licks her face, and the tongue is really long, and I hate it. And then she just ditches it. She leaves it behind. She sees it eating another guy. It like bites into the head of a guy instead of impaling it, and then she just leaves. She's like, nope, I'm out of here. And then it ends up on their ship, because we always have to have someone fight a xenomorph, right? And Call's the first one to see it and looks absolutely terrified. And then the baby, I'm gonna refer to it as the baby, it closes the hatch, because there's like a problem with the hatch. That's why Call was there. It was because the thing snuck in, and then it closed the hatch, so they think that everything's okay, and they head to Earth. So now they got to fight this thing. They don't actually have to fight it, like, at all. Actually, the way they beat it is ridiculously easy, where except for the guy that tries to, he doesn't even try to fight it or shoot it. It's just suddenly there in front of him for some reason. Like, I don't know how. Like, he had a gun, and I forgot someone died on the ship because this baby squashes his head like a fucking watermelon. I forgot about that. This movie does get a bit gory, where, like, things happen with people's heads, but you only see it from behind, and you don't see their face when their heads explode or anything, so it's not as bad. There's definitely been gorier things. Like I said with Aliens, if the synthetics, I feel like their stuff wouldn't be as like gory looking if their blood was red instead of white, because I did not recognize Bishop getting cut in half and blood everywhere as like gory, just because the color changed in blood, and that's it. I mean, that's the thing with like the show Murder Drones, for example, where I feel like it's so gory and it's able to get away with that only because they're robots, even though their oil and stuff works exactly the same as like human blood. I always think that's interesting, where it's like, it's not even like, oh, it doesn't look gory because they're robots, they're not humans, but it's like, no, it's just, if you just change the color of things, then it's fine. As long as it doesn't look red like our blood, it's like, I feel like I don't really process it as well. And it's interesting that the baby doesn't know what to do with Call. It does the thing like 8 does at the beginning, where it like touches her face, but then it sticks its fingers in her injury for some reason. Because this, normally it'd be like, okay, like xenomorphs usually don't know what to do with synthetics. But this like baby kind of seems to view itself as more alien than xenomorph anyway. So maybe it just is really confused. It doesn't know what to do. I mean, it also has this thing where it just kind of like looks at people. It's basically like a baby mentally, like a newborn. I think in Wikipedia it even is referred to as a newborn, which makes its death so awkward. Where 8 kind of tricks it, where she does this thing where she starts trying to like embrace it, like they're like, she's like holding its head or whatever, and then she uses its teeth to cut herself, and the creature doesn't notice, and then puts her blood, she like flicks it to make a hole in a window, and then the way this thing dies, it's like the easiest they've ever killed an alien at the end of a movie. But besides this thing having a baby mentality and not really having like an awareness of what's going on, I mean, that probably is how human babies are, like, huh? I don't know, I don't really meet that many babies, but it gets sucked out the window, but in a really sad and like painful looking way. Like normally the xenomorphs get like blasted out the airlock or whatever, and it's like, it's fine, but this thing literally gets sucked out from just one tiny hole, which I don't understand how that works, but whatever. Like its skin starts to plug the hole where a little bit of it sticks out, and this thing is clearly like screaming and in pain the entire time of the way, and then the hole sucks out a hole in its body, and its blood starts pouring out of the hole, and it kind of looks like it not explodes, but like, yeah, it's like if you exploded inside out, then like outside in, or I don't know how to describe this. I feel like you would have to like watch it to get what I mean. Where it gets sucked out of this hole, and it's like it's literally unraveling, and its skin and its guts are going out the hole, and then you see its intestines and everything is just leaving its body, and the last shot, and like Ripley's like, I mean, 8 is like crying and apologizes to this thing, and then the last shot of it is its skin gets taken off its skull, and it's like actual physical skull looks like a human skull, and then all the bones get sucked out. I don't know how that like tiny hole not only like disintegrated this creature, but like was able to have that much like pressure to like it even almost sucked out like 8 and Cal. But the one thing that kind of balances out wise of like that being horrifying is at the same time that happens, the space station they were on explodes, and the announcer says something like, "Oh, the ship is going to blow up," and then says thank you, but like in a very polite way, and then the thing on screen is just one of the regular xenomorphs, and then it blows up, and just the timing of that was actually pretty funny. And then we don't get to see the ground on Earth, and everyone gets to go to Earth. We don't actually get to interact with the rest of the crew after the baby gets destroyed. It's just, we just see like Cal, and I keep wanting to say Cal, and 8, and they're chatting and stuff. And I guess Cal had never seen Earth. I wondered like, where are the synthetics being like stored or anything? I guess they're being made. I mean, I know it's like robots made by robots at this point, but like, are they being made in like outer space or something? Because she had been with this mercenary group for a little bit too, so I don't know. But it's nice she gets to see Earth for the first time, and so does 8 apparently, because she mentions like, oh, I don't know what to do here, like I'm a stranger. She has this line of like, I'm a stranger here myself, which I thought was like a nice way to end it actually, because yeah, she has Ripley's memories. I mean, we've never seen Ripley herself on Earth in any of these, but you know, she has to be from there. But 8, since she's a clone that was made like the movie doesn't really last very long, like maybe like a couple of days. She's like barely like a couple of days old, and she's already like taken down the US government and killed a xenomorph and just gets to go to Earth. But you know, I'm glad at least someone finally gets to go to Earth and be happy, hopefully. And I wish it was our Ripley that we were with for three movies, but you know what, I'm glad some version of her gets to not be tormented by xenomorphs anymore. Yeah, because everyone's always trying to go somewhere in these movies, whether it's like another planet or whatever. No one seems to really be going to Earth anyway. But then nothing ever ends well in these, if I try to think about it. Like if I try to backtrack to the beginning, it's like I thought Prometheus was going to be cool when I found out there was going to be a sequel. I mean, they were both out when I was watching them on Hulu, of course, where it's like, okay, Elizabeth Shaw is gonna like go find the planet where the engineers came from or whatever, and then it's like, nope, she got killed off screen. And then Covenant ends where Daniels ends up surviving, and she gets put into cryo sleep or whatever, but then it turns out like, oh, David's in charge of the ship, and everyone on there is probably going to die. And then with Ripley, you know, I mean, she does get woken up and found in Aliens, so I guess that ends up being fine, but like eventually down the line she does like die in the 3rd movie. And then actually with Romulus, I think they were making it to that other planet. They were probably going to be fine, but like Kay's corpse is still there and is probably infected. They never shot it out of the airlock, and the movie doesn't mention anything with that. And you know, yeah, it's cool that Rain is taking Andy with her. I'm glad, but if they find out he's a synthetic, which, I mean, if he ever gets injured or anything, he immediately freezes on the floor and starts like glitching or whatever, so that's like a pretty clear sign she's probably going to be arrested. So who knows what's going to happen to her. Plus she has the black liquid on board too, the black goo. So so this is like, I think, the only protagonist in the movies, from what I've noticed, that like You're not in danger of a xenomorph unless there's already xenomorphs on Earth. I don't know. You know, and you get to just chill. So that's got to be good. I'm glad in that case, even though it's not Ripley, it's the closest we're probably getting to her story being wrapped up in some kind of positive way. But yeah, that's my videos so far. I guess I'll be kind of forced to take like a month break because Alien Earth isn't out yet, and I have been putting my deadline, by the way, that I've been talking about is that in like a couple of days that I'm recording this, I'm going to be out of town where I can't record anything on my computer. I mean, I could probably record stuff on my laptop, but then I wouldn't be able to like edit it or anything. I'd have to just post stuff, and I don't have OBS in that laptop, so it's like, yeah, you know, yeah, so my goal is to finish the Alien movies, and then I have to like actually wait till Alien Earth comes out, and I can't watch Prometheus because I'm going out of town for a month, so it's like, this was my chance. But I'm glad I got to rewatch most of these movies. It's kind of funny, like, you know, I was watching these, and then I finished with like, originally with like Prometheus and Covenant, and then I was like, damn, these are actually prequels. I need to restart again. So I wanted to like feel like I could watch things in the proper order, and then I literally just looped around by just like, okay, I'll just make a review on Alien because I didn't make a review on Alien. Otherwise I wouldn't have rewatched them, but it was nice because then as I was watching everything, I felt like I was understanding things like a billion times better, and that was great. That's, yeah, until Alien Earth, that's probably like the last of the Alien stuff for me. I mean, I did put Alien Isolation on my Steam list, but let's be honest, I hate jump scares. I will scream so hard. I don't know if that'll be fun to watch as a playthrough. It's a maybe if it goes on sale enough. And then I saw on the subreddit, the like Alien subreddit, the ones that's named after the planet, they literally have a list of like every chronological thing, like the order of everything besides the movies, like all the extended media stuff or whatever, of like, there's like a bunch of books. Some of them are about like individual characters. I saw there's one on like Bishop and Vasquez, and I thought that sounds cool. There's I think there's comics, there's like novelizations, the movies, there's just games, there's like so many other characters that have to deal with xenomorphs, so much shit that happens between the movies, and even after this one there's like more things that happen. So I would probably never run out of Alien content. There's even like DVD videos or something, or like promotional videos from like Prometheus and Covenant about like the characters and stuff and things that happen. I might watch those because I'm hoping those are kind of short. There's even like a promotional website, I think, for Prometheus as well. So I might check some of that stuff. Not anything unless they're like super cool or they answer all my questions that I would probably talk about on here. But I'll maybe check those out on my own time. Depends if I'm still interested. But yeah, this series is pretty cool. I'm glad I've sort of gotten into it. I'm genuinely surprised I was like paying attention to the lore and stuff, and I was like actually interested in like the company and like the way the synthetics were treated and stuff, and all these, I think because they were just like constant things that weren't even always in the background of like these movies, that I was just kind of just picking up on them and stuff, which was good. Because it's like, it's interesting because there's more of these, because I originally thought like, oh, these are just like the movies where they have to like fight the xenomorphs, but there's like all this other like lore and stuff, and it's like, damn. Which is funny because I was talking to my dad about these, and he's like, there's so many sequels and stuff, and it's like, isn't it just they do the same thing all the time? And I mean, yeah, it mostly is, except like for Prometheus, but you know, the one thing that would be cool though is in Spaceballs, the original Spaceballs, because they're making a sequel to that, and I do need to go back to watch that scene because now I'll appreciate it. Because when I was little and I watched Spaceballs, I didn't get it. I'm like, what is that thing? They have the chest burster scene, but it's like a little puppet and sings a song and then it leaves, and I think they even had John Hurt in there as Kane just to have an alien like chest burst out of him again. And I heard that even the people in that scene are dressed as like the other characters of that crew, and I'm like, okay, I want to watch it. So I'm kind of hoping in and they in the trailer for Spaceballs 2, they have the scrolling thing of like all these movies that came out, and they even make like a couple jabs to the series too, about how there's like 7 Alien sequels and then 1 Prometheus, because it's not really an Alien movie. So I'm hoping there's like some kind of reference in there. That would be cool. I have no idea what they do, but that would be neat. But yeah, that's it for me. I'm glad I got these done before I left on my trip. Yeah, I do want to watch Alien Earth as long as I still get to keep Hulu, because I got like the student discount thing. And yeah, but that's a TV series though, so I'll maybe review it like individually as episodes or whatever. All right, bye, thanks for watching. Sorry this was like an hour and a half. Once it gets to like 10:30, my brain just feels like it's not focused on anything anymore. All right. Oh wait, no, I didn't say if I liked the movie or not. I didn't even read my final thoughts. Damn. Okay. Final thoughts. The movie had some funny lines, which was cool. I appreciated that. The scares, I think, were done a bit better here than in like Aliens and in 3. Then again, everything feels better than the third movie, if I'm honest. It feels like a new kind of horror between like the queen birthing scene and the failed clones and the humanoid alien at the end. There's like a lot of weird body horror stuff. And I'm glad they brought back the baby hybrid as like an idea in Romulus, but it was like the final thing they had to deal with, but it was like an actual struggle, and it was like less sad, you know. I think from this rewatch, I like 8 as a character, as long as I view her in my head as not being Ripley. I think it just works out. I like her friendship with Cal, and how before they even both found out that they were like not humans, you know, and having that sort of weird kinship together, they were already sort of like getting along and stuff, because Cal basically is like the secondary protagonist and stuff. Yeah, it was cool. I liked it. I think in terms of my rankings for now that I'm like mentally doing in my head, Romulus is my favorite, and then very, very close to that is like a first place 1.5, I can call it. I can't even bump it down to 2 because it's that good. It's the original Alien, and then I think Aliens, and then this one. I was thinking about that, but Aliens I feel like I enjoyed more. But this one is cool. I think I heard that this one was a flop, and I originally didn't know how I felt about it. But it does the horror stuff well and everything, and I like the ideas it brings up of like this was the one to introduce like we had a human xenomorph at the end, and just having a protagonist that's like a successful hybrid for once, and having it take place like 200 years in the future with the government that kind of functions like Yutani, but it's not the same like company or anything. It like kind of felt like it changed things enough a bit, or just the ideas explored, where I'm like, okay, this is cool. But then I know Prometheus did a similar thing, but this one, you know, was an alien movie. I'm never trying to shit talk Prometheus, by the way, when I say like it doesn't feel like an alien movie and it doesn't have xenomorphs. I kind of view Prometheus as like its own thing. I completely am glad that it does not have alien in the title. So yeah, in my head I agree with Spaceballs. I agree with Spaceballs too, that I view it as separate, because like my thoughts with that is, as a sci-fi movie in general, I liked it. It's cool. As an alien movie, I don't view it as an alien movie, so that's a no. But the idea of exploring with the engineers and like finding the creation of humanity, and then just kind of like investigating the temples and stuff, was a cool angle. And I feel like the ideas they had with David were also cool, but it felt like it was like coming from like a different movie that wasn't that one. It's just Covenant is the one where I'm like, I don't know. I don't know where that goes in my ranking. I liked it better than Prometheus. I don't know if I like it or if I don't like it. I just remember, at least of the things that I don't like, that we didn't really know the characters, and it wasn't really focused on the horror, and but I think I liked the rest of it. That's that one and Prometheus. Not like I'm planning to loop around and rewatch everything again, but I need to give them another rewatch before I have a final opinion. But for everything else, that's pretty much where it stands. We'll see with Alien Earth, where I get to blab more about this series. And Prometheus, I mean, not Prometheus, I always say that every damn time. The Predators. I want to get into those too. They seem cool. All right, thanks. Yeah, bye.